So I've now described DNS as a distributed database and just said there's owner ostension, there's abbreviation, and it causes confusion. That's right. Part 2, AWS. So AWS provide a DNS service called Route 53, and this service has its own documentation, and as is convention, the first chapter goes through some key terms. And one such term is, here we go, alias record. And at the time of writing, that expression alias record appears 444 times in the documentation. Quickly, these alias records were probably released by AWS on 24th of May 2011 because they say here at the bottom of the documentation. And they're defined as follows: a type of record that you can create with Amazon Route 53 to route traffic to AWS resources, such as Amazon CloudFront distributions and S3 buckets. So that's what they are, alias records. I'm not happy with that definition for a few reasons. First, it describes an alias record as a type of record. Now that's going to lead readers, some of whom may still be getting to grips with DNS, to believe that alias is a type with trademark alongside CNAME, MX and A. Okay, to be clear, alias is not a type. These records may well be records, but they could opt to use the word kind or sort. I'm going to suggest an entirely different way of speaking, which I'll get to later. Second, this definition completely fails to define. Defining involves separating the things in question from other things. We're told alias records can be created with Route 53, but many sorts of records can be created with Route 53, including ones which are not alias records, so that is no help. We're told that the record allows you to route traffic to AWS resources, but don't A-type records do this? In fact, so similar is this description to other RRs, the reader is probably led to believe that this is just the alias record is just AWS's term for a regular RR. So overall, the effort to capture what's unique about alias records is abysmal in that definition. Two reasons that the expression itself, alias record, is misleading. First, as mentioned, it leads people to believe that alias is a type alongside MX and CNAME. We frequently use CNAME record to mean record that has type of CNAME. We've got into the habit of making that jump to an official type, and the expression alias record is like a parasite that exploits that habit. The second, though, the reader is led to believe that a record is either an alias record or an A record. In other words, A records and alias records are mutually exclusive of one another. So if it's an alias record, it's not an A record. If it's an A record, it's not an alias record. And the reader is led to believe that because the types display that logical behaviour. If a record is an A type, then it's not an MX type. It's no other type. If a record is an MX type record, it's not any other type. So these types certainly are mutually exclusive, the official types. It turns out, however, that a record can simultaneously be an A record and an alias record. So there's two reasons even the expression alias record is a bit misleading. The word alias is an important one and has been a technical term in DNS since its inception. It has a definite meaning. An alias is a non-canonical name found in the owner field of CNAME records. The alias is usually presented on the left-hand side of the record. AWS decides to unveil a new feature in its DNS service in Route 53. The fact that they opted for the word alias, which already has an established meaning in DNS, is incredible. Alias is conventionally the term used to refer to the owner of CNAME records. A maxim such as you shouldn't refer, this is a bit of a difficult point to make, but let's just go for it. So a maxim such as you shouldn't refer to the record itself as an alias, the CNAME record. You shouldn't call the CNAME record an alias. Okay, that seems kind of obvious, right? Why would you? But consider that we've seen how people sometimes refer to records as just CNAMEs. They abbreviate the expression CNAME record after all. And we've seen how sometimes there's talk of records having names. Think of the record named Roger.com. So actually the seemingly reasonable maxim up here deteriorates in the face of AWS's prolific use of this expression alias record. AWS's prolific use of alias record tempts many people whose previous understanding of DNS was decent to start believing that people refer to CNAME records as alias records. Now to be clear, people don't, and nor is that what AWS are doing. But you can hardly blame people if they start to think that alias record is a term people use to refer to CNAME records. CNAME records essentially contain aliases, so it's really kind of damaging, this phrase alias record, because people might kind of start doubting themselves and think, well, there's records that contain aliases, that's not what we must be referring to with the expression alias records. CNAME records contain aliases, they have to.